In the world of Fiore, magic is for most people a tool and a mundane part of everyday life. But for some, magic is an art and they devote their lives to its practice. These are mages, and they band together in magical guilds to apply their skills in search of fame and fortune. There are many guilds across Fiore, but one special guild is where countless legends have been born, and that guild's name is Fairy Tail. In the first 10 episodes of the series dub, we hear this speech about how magic is absolutely everywhere, and that Fairy Tail has some of the most talented wizards around the world. And among the Fairy Tail wizards, there is one character which everyone in the guild fears and respects: the Queen of the Fairies, Erza Scarlet. Fairy Tail is an interesting show. Half the people who have watched it are die-hard fans, and the other half hate it with a burning passion. It's basically the pineapple on pizza of anime. People have issues with Natsu or Lucy, the power of friendship, fan service, and so much more, but for other people, that's what they love about the series. There are two things that everyone agrees on, though, when it comes to Fairy Tail. One, the music is absolutely amazing. And two, Erza Scarlet is one of the most badass characters in all of anime. So today, let's talk about one of the most loved characters in anime and answer the question, who is Erza Scarlet? Erza was abandoned by her mother at birth because her mother was unable to kill her, which is a strong way to start this story, and it's a whole thing. For the most part, though, it is more about Irene's character than it is for Erza's, but suffice it to say that Erza's family tree has a ton of magic in it, and when her mother cast her out, she wound up living in Rosemary Village. She lived a pretty average life there, all things considered, until a few years later when the village was attacked by Zeref, and she was captured and brought to the Tower of Heaven as a slave. And this is where Erza's story really begins. Erza was imprisoned with many other children, most important of which was Jalal Fernandez, who actually gave her her surname Scarlet after her red hair. They were imprisoned, tortured, and forced to work physical labor. Among the other prisoners was a man named Rob, an elderly mage from the Fairy Tail Guild who taught her about magic and gave her hope. Together they all planned an escape effort, but it was quickly stopped by the guards. They said they would bring the mastermind into the disciplinary chamber while the rest would be starved for 3 days. Jalal offered himself as a sacrifice, saying that he was the mastermind, but the guards instead blamed Erza. They took her away and tortured her to near death, even resulting in the loss of her eye. And while Jalal eventually did manage to rescue her, he ended up getting captured himself. Erza couldn't take it anymore and staged a revolt. It was going pretty well, actually. However, as soon as the Tower Mages showed up, things quickly changed. Her friend Simon's jaw was blasted off by magic, and when Erza herself was targeted, Rob sacrificed himself to protect her. She went into a rage and awakened her magic, turning all the tools and weapons in the area against the guards and becoming victorious. Of course, this is a story about young Erza, so you know that it doesn't end there. As the prisoners ran for the escape boats, Jalal arrived. Or at least his body did. He had been possessed by the spirit of Zeref, who explained that the only way for him to attain his freedom was for the tower to be completed. Erza was cast out of the tower by Jalal when she refused to help him, and was forced away as all of her friends remained imprisoned as slaves, while Jalal threatened to kill them if she ever told anyone about the tower. Erza eventually washed up on the shores of Fiore and joined the Fairy Tail Guild. She was distant and eventually took up the habit of wearing armor, eventually telling Sho that if she's not wearing armor, even years later, she doesn't feel secure. She didn't really interact with the other members much until Gray found her crying one day and asked her what was wrong. After this, she started talking to her guildmates more and even ended up starting a rivalry with Mira Jane when she joined. She had found her new family and quickly became the guild's youngest S-class mage in history, eventually even becoming known as Titania, Queen of the Fairies, because she was so powerful. Now that we've covered her basic history, I think we need to talk about magic in Fiore in general. People often talk about how amazing the battle system is in Black Clover because the magic is developed around the caster's personality and experience. However, the magic in Fairy Tail is nearly the same. And sure, you can add in the power of friendship for some bullshit maneuvers, but for the most part on a base level, Erza explained it best when she said, "What's important isn't the magic, it's the heart of the wielder." And that heart is often represented in what magic the character can actually use. For some examples, Lucy was a wizard who dreamed to have as many friends as she could, and her magic allows her to summon friends in the form of celestial spirits. Makarov, the master of the guild, sees his guildmates as children, and he's able to grow in size so they can look up to him while he protects them like a parent would. Wendy is kind-hearted and caring and can cast support magic. And then we come to Erza. As I explained, basically from birth, Erza had everything taken from her. Her mother tried to kill her and abandoned her. Her village was destroyed. She was enslaved and tortured. She watched as her friend Simon was mutilated and her mentor Rob sacrificed himself for her. Her best friend Jalal was possessed by the ultimate evil and blackmailed her into silence before forcing her to leave the rest of her friends behind. To say that she had a rough go of things is an understatement. Every time she got close to other people, either they were hurt or she was. She loved her friends with every inch of her heart because with each new friend came a chance that this time could be different. But it never was. She couldn't protect herself and she couldn't protect those around her. She became afraid of getting too close to people both because they could hurt her and because she knows how much it hurts to lose those people. And that brings us to her special form of requip magic, the Knight. Erza has the ability to store weapons and armor inside of a pocket dimension and then equip them at will. And in the cases of weapons, she can actually move them around with something like telekinesis. The first time Erza uses this magic is to defend her friends in the Tower of Heaven. However, those friends ended up being taken away anyways. Then she begins isolating herself and wears literal armor to keep people away. However, it isn't until she starts warming up to others and making friends that she can begin to master her magic. At its core, Erza's magic is specifically designed to keep herself and her friends safe. She can swap between over 100 different armors and weapons to ensure that she can protect herself and her friends in any situation. She tells Ozma that all the power that she needs is to be able to protect her friends, and so long as she has the strength to do that, she doesn't care if she's weaker than everyone else in the world. And she definitely has the ability to do that. Fire attacks, Fire Empress armor. Flying opponents, Black Wing armor. Giant cannon pointed at your guild, Adamantine armor. Loxus has 200 lightning lacrima that will destroy the town, Heaven's Wheel armor. Trying to get some? Seduction armor. Erza is ready for anything and everything, but at the core of almost all of her forms is the ability to protect herself. In most cases, with the exception of using the adamantine armor to save her guild from the Jupiter cannon, her armor, like I said, is built to defend herself, and the weapons, on the other hand, are summoned to fight for her friends. However, there is an armor that flips this. If Erza really needs to push herself beyond her limits, she almost always relies on the Clear Heart clothing. It's just normal clothes with no special powers. However, if Erza's armor as a whole is used to represent the walls that she creates, then this armor is breaking those walls down and allowing her to just be herself, which it turns out tends to be pretty badass. She's no longer protecting herself, and now she is only summoning weapons to fight for her friends. And in a show where the power of friendship is used to push people beyond their limits, it kind of makes sense that Erza's greatest strength comes from tearing down the walls that she once used to keep others away. She says, "I was once weak, I was always afraid, I hid my tears but I kept going. I kept on believing, I followed my heart, and I found my courage." In most cases when people think of Erza, they think of her fighting 100 monsters, or destroying a meteor and cutting down a dragon, or maybe even just her beating Kyoko without having any of her senses except her sense of pain. She is a badass, in every sense of the word, which is why it can be so easy for people to forget that Erza is one of the most tragic characters in the series. Almost every one of the iconic armors that she uses in those badass scenes are physical representation of how scared and insecure she feels. and in every fight where those armors end up not being enough, we see her jumping into an armor that breaks down those walls that she put up. But those are just my thoughts on Erza. She's a tragic yet badass character who developed magic to keep herself and those she loves safe. But what do you think about Erza and about Fairy Tail as a whole? Personally, I'm in the camp of people who like the series. I don't think the plot or the scaling is anything amazing, but I've always loved the way that the characters interact with each other and the family that we see developing in each episode. Many of the characters can be flat, but it also has characters like Erza or Lucy, who have definitely had me on the edge of tears, if not bursting out crying. Speaking of Lucy, if you'd like to see a video about her, let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, you can also leave a like and consider subscribing for more anime content, but with all that being said, I've been Excellion. I will see you in the next video, and until next time, remember to stay excellent.